Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Dave. I'm a parent of a daughter in college, and we live in Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a graduate of the University of Georgia, and she is getting her master's degree at North Carolina State University. Good morning, friends. Got a couple of big announcements actually today before we dive into our preview for our interview. So I want to take you back to Houston, where if you're a regular listener, you know last week I gave a preview and an overview of the NACAC conference. There's a pretty big announcement that happened at NACAC that I never mentioned last week, and I want to share it with you. So I was attending this session with Andy Borst, who runs the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign office. And he was doing a presentation, and I was I was wondering a bit, was taking notes, and then he said something, and it grabbed me. And so what he said was that iPads is no longer going to count an application that is not complete. And complete is going to be defined as a decision can be rendered. So if you're a regular listener of our podcast, you know one of the problems is there's no standard definition of an application. And one way colleges inflate their numbers is by using, and sometimes a lot of gimmickry, such as the FAST apps, VIPS, Snap apps. And if you're not sure what I'm referring to there, these are these notices that your child gets that basically says everything's all pre-filled in for you. All you need to do is just put your Jane Henry on, and you're done with us. No application fee. A lot of times they say, we are recognizing you as one of the most outstanding pupils, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times there's merit scholarships dangled. You could be eligible for it. Usually they're $20,000 plus type dollars. And all in a goal to do a couple things. In some cases, it's just juice the numbers. So you can say you had more applications. In other cases, schools legitimately are trying to suss out some people that they may want and trying to incentivize them and making it easier. So that's been a problem. We've talked about it a lot in the past. Another problem has been colleges that almost create like a two-tier system. So I know in weird admissions, we kind of had this, but we didn't count them in our numbers. So we had like a part one that you had to do, and it sort of showed us that you were serious and you kind of completed that. We followed up with you with more information. We didn't regard that as an application, though. So some schools have a system where if you just complete a portion of it, they regard it as an application, and there's not enough information to ever render a decision. It never goes to committee or to an individual to read, or however the structure of the office is set up. It may not be a committee. It could just be a straight numerical thing, but there's not enough information for it to be for a decision to be rendered, but it counts in the numbers. Well, that is going away. And one of the things Andy was saying is some of these schools that have really high application numbers and low admit rates, all of a sudden they're going to see their admit rates go up and their applications go down because there's been a whole lot of things that have been counting as applications where a decision could not be rendered. I want to stand up and give a standing ovation. I couldn't believe it. I was so psyched. So afterward, I went up and I had a conversation with him one-on-one. And he did say that this will not take effect this year. This will go into effect next year. Now, I've been trying to find an article or something on it. This is really important. So far, I've been unsuccessful. If anybody can find an article out there on that, please send it to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. I'll also reach out to Andy directly this week if I don't hear from anybody, because he's incredibly credible. He would never say something like that without it being true. So I take it to the bank on his word. And look forward, by the way, to having him come on the podcast as he's committed to do that. So that's a super big announcement. And I'm really excited to share that with you. I know some schools are probably fretting in their boots, but it's a move toward integrity and trust and credibility and reliability with numbers. Should be no reason for schools using different standards out here as to what an application is and what a application isn't. So that's a really big story, and I'm excited to share it with you. Okay, the next one is also really big. And I'm just going to read the title of this first, and then I'm going to go into more depth. So for those of you who kind of track applications and who gets the most applications and that kind of thing, it has been UCLA for several years in a row now. And there's been a problem, which is students in California, really all across the country, but particularly in California, they pay a lot of money for state taxes and they can't get into their state schools. And there's been another problem. There's not much UCLA's been able to do about it because of all of the 9 UCs, they have the smallest campus. You know, they're sitting on a campus, you know, in Westwood of 419 acres. When I did boarding school admissions, we had 400 students that lived in the dorms and stayed on campus, and we had a campus of over 600 acres. Now, mind you, we had a lot of fields and a lake, but still, I cannot even imagine all of those students on 400 acres. So they're just completely landlocked. And once again, you're comparing a city campus to more of a suburban campus. So I realize it's apples and oranges, but I'm still just making a point. That is not a lot of acres for the number of students that they have. So here's the big news. UCLA wants more students, but has no room. So it's buying a campus in Rancho Palos Verdes. They buying a campus. Now, I'm very excited about this news. So once again, Teresa Wannabe dropping another great story. This came out September 27th. Thank you, Vince, who always sends me stuff like this right to my text every time it breaks. So I'm going to break a rule. The rule is established by Anika for you longtime listeners. You know, Anika and I originally launched this podcast back in 2017 in October. And then we had one episode and then we went back to the drawing table and said we don't know enough. And we hired a consultant and listened to 100 episodes. And then we officially launched in February of 2018. But Anika had a rule. No reading too much. When you read, you have like a paragraph. You can't read too much. But I have Anika in my conscience screaming at me, but I'm a free agent now. So Anika stayed with us all the way through the first 171 episodes and had a great conversation with her this week, by the way. She's doing really well. And she says hi. But she's not here, so I'm a free agent, so I can break that rule, and I'm going to do it. So I'm actually going to read you this article. I hope I don't bore you, but I want you to know the details because I think this is really important. So here's what it says. In a milestone move to expand enrollment at the nation's most popular university by creating a satellite campus, UCLA announced Tuesday it's buying 2 large properties owned by Marymount Christian University, a small Catholic university in Rancho Palos Verdes that closed their doors last month. So this is the Anika voice in my ear. I'll try to provide a little commentary so the reading's not too bad. So you've heard us talk about a lot of schools are under a lot of pressure right now. So you're seeing a lot of things. You're seeing mergers, closures, downsizing. One of the upsides to that is it does create some more land for schools to engulf and swallow up other campuses, sometimes get them at affordable prices, and expand. And that's actually what's happened here. So Marymount Christian University closing opened up an opportunity. All right, I'm going to continue. UCLA's $80 million purchase of Marymount's 24.5-acre campus and an 11-acre residential site near San Pedro marks the university's most significant expansion to help the burgeoning demand for seats. UCLA drew nearly 140,000 first-year applications for about 6,600 spots in the fall of 2021, and even more applications this year, sparking angst amongst the growing legions of rejected Californians and pressure from state legislators to reduce the number of out-of-state students. Vince and I did a segment on that. No need to continue. Go back just to probably 3-4 weeks, and you can hear Vince and I talking about the reduction in out-of-state students to accommodate the demand for California students. But UCLA, whose 419-acre Westwood footprint is the smallest amongst UC's 9 undergraduate campuses, it has no room to grow, prompting the campus to look for alternatives. UCLA's Chancellor Gene Block said the Marymount, California properties, the university's, check this out, largest ever land acquisition, could accommodate 1,000 students and potentially house half of them. So about 500 of them potentially could live on campus, which has 81 villas. Not stopping there. Check this out. Satellite campuses are just one of several strategies UCLA is developing to add about 3,000 more undergraduates and about 350 more graduate students by 2030. This is our commitment to the people of California, Block said in an interview. We realize there's been frustration by the number of young people that want to attend our research universities, and this is in a significant way our response to that need. The university will use general revenue bonds, a common form of funding, to initiate large capital projects and to pay for the properties. The UC Board of Regents, prodded by Gavin Newsom and state legislatures, has made a growing enrollment a top priority as applications continue to surge to record levels. President Michael Drake and campus chancellors recently designed a plan. Now check this out. This is powerful. To increase enrollment, don't faint, by at least 20,000 students and potentially as many as 33,000 by 2030. UC does not plan to build a new campus because of time and expense, but campus leaders are crafting plans to accommodate more students with expanded online courses, with summer offerings, with off-campus programs and additional support to help students graduate more quickly, which would free up seats. So in addition to this big purchase, you've got their aggressive expansion plans for expanding online, summer programs, and off-campus programs. Now, check this out. It may not just stop there. UC Berkeley Chancellor Carol Christ is in a presentation to UC Regents last week, outlined plans for satellite programs at Moffett Field, owned by NASA, that would focus on aerospace science and engineering. She said that Berkeley was considering potential plans to develop one of its land parcels in Richmond to expand capacity for more students in research. UC Davis is building Aggie Square, an innovation hub in its Sacramento campus that will include science and technology buildings and more student housing. That campus estimates a few hundred undergraduates will be able to at least spend one quarter there. UCLA's opportunity with Marymount, California, it opened in April when the private institution board of members voted to close the university, which was founded in 1968 as a 2-year junior college by the Religions of Sacred Heart Mary. So we've talked about how junior colleges, community colleges have been hit really, really, really hard, the hardest of all schools. And it makes sense because of the demographic that they attract more often than not, was a very fragile demographic to the ailing economy. And so if you're struggling to pay your rent and put food on the table and to have transportation, then it's pretty hard to justify more money going out for school when you're just in survival mode. So who did that hit the hardest? Community colleges, the regional publics. And so you've seen a greater decline in them, therefore leading to, to closures and mergers. Like other small colleges struggling to survive, Marymount, California had seen its enrollment drop from a peak of 1,000 in 2014 to only 500 this year. And the tuition revenue shrunk after efforts to merge with St. Leo in Florida. I was actually following that. St. Leo in Florida is a school that was recruiting my daughter for basketball for a while, one of the most gorgeous campuses ever. And so I was kind of following that. It looked like St. Louis was planning on purchasing Marymount, but that deal fell through in April. And so that's what opened this up opportunity. So the board took the next step to close its doors and sell the property. It was really gut-wrenching. We had a very unique campus. It was a place where students really thrived. It was very hard to think about that closing coming to an end. The university is helping its students transfer to other institutions, including the University of Laverne. So, all right, I'm hearing Anika's voice in my ear saying, "Enough reading." So I'm gonna skim and just hit a couple more points here. Shortly after the university announced it would sell the property, 285 inquiries came flooding in, and they took 41 bids. And the bottom line, UCLA won it, and they got the bid. And so I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about this story. Might even have to have Sylvia come on. Sylvia is a substitute co-host. She's been on our podcast multiple times. She's a UCLA alum, proud California, Southern California resident. As this story expands, I might have to ask Sylvia to come on and give us an update. But there you go. Pretty significant development, and I wanted to bring it to you. Another thing I never mentioned last week when I was at NACA, because I did get by three college/universities. I had to go by Rice in Houston for a lot of different reasons, and I had a really good time at Rice. I really appreciate it. I just hated that I wasn't able to connect with one of my students there. That just didn't quite work, but great time at Rice. I also got by University of Houston's downtown campus, which is really blowing up, as well as the University of Houston's main campus, and Texas Southern, one of the largest HBCUs in the country. And it was my first time visiting Texas Southern. I had no idea that it's basically just completely adjacent to U of H. It's like they really almost don't know when one campus ends and the other campus starts. But that's a little bit from last week. Now, last announcement, this is really important. So this is October 3rd today when you're hearing this podcast. If you're listening on Monday, October 1 is when the FAFSA opens up, the free application for federal student aid. It's also when the CSS profile opens up, the college scholarship search profile, which between 180 to 200 colleges require. And they tend to be wealthier colleges that have a lot more of their own institutional money. And they require that form to be filled out because, just to be honest, it's more accurate than the FAFSA, just to be blunt about it. And so if they're going to give their own institutional money away, they want to make sure it goes to people that really qualify for it. The FAFSA has some loopholes that a savvy person, especially if they're being unethical, can get around those loopholes. The CSS profile blocks them all. That's why there are double the questions on the thing. It's over 200 questions. But they both came out October 1st, and they can be tricky, especially for first-timers, especially the profile. So normally we don't do recommended resources on Monday. We save those for Thursday. But you will see links to a walkthrough for both the profile and the FAFSA. And we'll also get them up on our website. We have walkthroughs on our website right now, but I do like to do current ones for the current year. This is the 23-24 edition. And so I encourage people, when you're completing your FAFSA, when you're completing your profile, use a walkthrough. It's a step-by-step guide showing you how to answer every single question with commentary. So you'll see links in the show notes, and we'll get those up on the website. It'll probably be about a week before we get them up on the website, but you'll see them immediately in the show notes right now. So you can go to work on completing them. You don't have to do them first week, but I do recommend you do them both in October. There are a few states that are first come, first serve when it comes to FAFSA money. And, you know, if you snooze, you lose. And if your child's eligible for some money, some schools do link their institutional money to the FAFSA. And some states also use the FAFSA for any institutional grant. Quite a few states use it, actually, as their main source. If they're going to give need-based state aid, it's do the FAFSA. So you don't want to fool around with that. You want to get that done. You want to get that complete. And even if you're a full-pay family, you do want to check your school's policy, because increasingly more and more schools are requiring the FAFSA to be completed to receive aid. It's a small number, but it's a growing number. It's absolutely worth checking out. And you would say, well, why would they do that? Well, I know that because we had Michael Rooneyewitz, Director of Financial Aid from WashU, on our podcast a few years ago, and he said the more FAFSAs that are completed, the more work study money we get. So we can employ students, and work study is like half paid by the federal government and half by the school. So that's one of the reasons why you see some schools requiring FAFSA completion even to get merit money. So once again, small number, but worth checking out. Also, there are some schools that have a policy that if you don't complete the FAFSA the first year, you don't apply for financial aid, you can't ever get it. I worked for a school that did that once. Like if you came in not applying for aid, making yourself look like a full pay family, and then after year one, you said, oh, I need a bunch of aid, you didn't necessarily get that because we were need aware. We admit you as a full pay family. And so a lot of colleges have that policy as well. So if you think, well, I don't need financial aid, but never know, lose a job, circumstances can change. It can be advisable to complete the FAFSA. Also, if you want to have your child have some skin in the game, maybe take out a small federal direct student loan, you're going to need to complete the FAFSA. And I've worked with families that done this, they want their child to begin to establish credit and see their credit score increase. Take out a small $2,000 loan, start making payments right away, do that for over 4 years, and your child's credit score can I've really seen some real big surges by people doing that. So there are a lot of reasons to complete the FAFSA, even if you're someone who thinks, well, we're not going to qualify for need-based financial aid.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Okay, we had Darrell Edmonds up last week, Deputy Director from the University of Delaware, and I was very pleased by the response we got to that. Several of you wrote in, and it's a 2-part interview. And so today, Darrell really gets into all things new at Delaware. He also listened to the spotlight I did on the University of Delaware twice. And so he wants to add some additional things that I didn't cover in addition to the spotlight. He supplements it. He talks about the STARZ campus, and he talks about the athletic center. Listen and enjoy. And it's important because, a lot of times there's a lot of talk around diversity and equity and inclusion, but it's only talk. It's like, because it can be hard work. It's taking people from non-traditional populations and bringing them into an environment that's very foreign and having them have a very positive experience, excel, and graduate. And so it's nice to know that they're in the trenches supporting the work, because not every school is doing that. So what would you say are some of the changes, Darrell, that you've seen in 20 to 25 years since you were a student to what you see is happening now? I mean, you mentioned one. Sounds like there's some study abroad, unique opportunities for people of color, but I'm sure you see it from a step back from a macro perspective, even outside of access work. What are some changes that you see?
So I would definitely like to highlight our STAR campus. And I want to get this right. STAR stands for Science, Technology, and Advanced Research Campus. So many of our health sciences programs are located in that space. Our actually university-based physical therapy clinic. Again, I'm not one that's super big on rankings, but, University of Delaware's physical therapy graduate program has been number one in the nation multiple times. So you have that access to this research-based campus. That biopharmaceuticals. There are also partnerships with private as well as public orgs in that space, like Nimble is in that space. We were actually touring the facility as an admissions team maybe a few weeks ago, and we were in one hallway on one floor, and the supercharged microscopes, that were in that space that can give you digital slicing of images. And there were multiples in different office rooms in that space. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like a $5 to $10 million hallway,
Wow.
Just in microscopes on one floor. And that was in one tower, right? So there's multiple buildings, there's towers in that space on STAR campus. That's amazing. And that was something that was being stood up, kind of like just before the pandemic hit, and really looking at what it offers students who are really interested in not just research, right? University of Delaware is an R1 institution,
Sure.
all those amazing things. But to to actually have the opportunity to be engaged at some of the earliest semesters when you're in college. There were, freshmen there that were engaged in research over the summer. The folks that just completed their freshman year. So it's not just limited to grad students or, professors or even people that want to visit the campus, but our students are engaged in that space very early on. So that's super impressive. Our STAR campus, for anyone that's looking at health sciences, biopharmaceuticals, or anything like that, when you visit University of Delaware, you definitely want to step to make sure you take a STAR campus tour. Across the street from there.
And where exactly is the STAR campus?
So the STAR campus is, I was getting ready to line up. It's across the street from our football stadium. So it's still on what we would call College Ave, be on South College Ave. It's not far from our College of Agricultural and Natural Resources, where you see our farm, our pre-vet. You talked about the farm and the cows and our actual U-Dairy Creamery that's right there on campus. It's in that section of campus. So it's not necessarily a campus of its own in a whole other town or community. It's just a continuation. And again, it's right across the street from the football stadium and all of some of our other sports complexes and our new Whitney Athletic Center, which is amazing. So that would be one of the things that's new. Again, something that really was started prior to the pandemic and completed. There's a unrivaled, really, facility there when it comes to access and resources for all of our athletes. The weight room, the Joe Flacco family weight room, our Super Bowl winning quarterback from the University of Delaware, made a significant donation to give us a Power 5 level weight room for our athletes. Wow. Right.
Nice.
The training room has its own, we no longer, when I was there, we used to get into the old metal tins of ice, for your ice bath. Now they have resort-like ice bath jacuzzis for athletes to get into, ice their ankles and their joints. And then there's a warm one, resort style. There's a really nice recovery pool there. There's a gladiator shake bar. It's not really called a gladiator shake bar, but basically you can go to a shake bar to get your pre and post workouts. You head upstairs. There's a dining hall for athletes. There's study space, athlete support space. It is an amazing facility that is there for our athletes. And I believe the payoff is happening, almost immediately. You saw our lacrosse team make the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament, knocked off number 2 Georgetown. You saw both our men's and women's basketball team make the NCAA tournament. You saw our national champion cheerleading team, our national champion dance team. The payoff was almost immediate for giving our athletes the facilities to match their talent and their aspirations. So the Whitney Athletic Center is another amazing space that's on campus that is newer in comparison to the spotlight that happened in 2020. Also opened up during the pandemic, an amazing esports arena on campus for our esports athletes that are there that are taking competitive gaming. We also have a competitive gaming, not just competitive athletes, but we have a major and minor on campus and scholarships for athletes that are into esports. So that's in one of our 2 university student centers. That's in the Perkins Student Center. That whole student center actually has been remodeled. So there's a Denny's on campus. There's a pastries bar. So one of our alumni from the University of Delaware, Chef Dana Herbert, was the first winner for season 1, The Next Great Baker on Food Network. So he's an amazing alumni, Black man who's now back on campus and runs a kiosk where he serves his confections and sweets on campus. There's a number of really good things that are happening. There's been a revamp and remodeling of our support services for students. So we can go get our counseling offices and support individual counseling group. There's even yoga classes for recovery in that space. There's a number of things that are happening that show the university's commitment to the whole student, right? It's great to have all those amazing research spaces, and you want that. You want to challenge and meet the students in their academic pursuits and truly their desire to change the world and be impactful.
Now this is
but good. Also to support students that are really coming out of a difficult time too,
Sure. Now, one thing that I never talked about is your additional campuses. Obviously you've got Wilmington, Dover, Georgetown, and then I'm particularly interested in your beach campus. Because what happens is you get students that want to be close to the beach. And so talk to us about the different campuses, especially the beach location. I call it the beach, but
Yeah.
Delaware, right?
So
Yeah,
the beach location in Lewis, Delaware,
yeah.
is really where a lot of research, but even classes around our marine biology and oceanography, opportunity to get plenty of, you know, again, hands-on research experience, and it's on a pretty nice beach area in Lewis, Delaware, right? You also mentioned
Is
our
it
Wilmington.
residential? I mean, is
It's
there
not
dormitory?
residential. It's not
Okay, okay,
residential in, in,
okay.
in the sense of, our main campus in Newark.
Sure,
It's
sure.
really more of an extension campus.
So do students, do they get there from the main campus? How do they get there if they
They
want to
get
take
there from the
advantage of
main
it?
campus. Yeah, they get there
Okay,
from the
okay.
main campus, and
Can they access
often
it via train, or do they need to? Do they need
there's
to have cars?
shuttles. There's
Shuttles. Okay,
shuttles. Yeah,
okay,
there's
good.
shuttles. We
All
have
right. So the
a pretty
shuttles will take you back and
yeah.
forth.
We have a pretty extensive shuttle system here at the University of Delaware, and
And are they
it's
shuttling people to the beach who want to go there for weekend getaways too?
not quite that. Not quite
Okay,
that.
you need a car for that.
Yeah, you need a car for that.
Okay.
But that campus has been a part of the community for years, and has offered some amazing opportunities for students, and professors and graduate students as well. Really the full Blue Hen community to have great access to hands-on research and experimental opportunities. You also mentioned the Wilmington campus, which is my other
Yes.
piece of what has changed. The University of Delaware has an associate arts program,
Mm-hmm.
which really helps to serve as a bridge for students who either need that kind of intermediate exchange between high school and post-secondary education, or for those that want to look for an opportunity to save money. And understanding what we're facing as a nation with our student loan debt crisis, as well as the cost of college, exceeding, inflation and everything, where we have an opportunity through the state of Delaware for something called a Seed Plus scholarship. So students can become University of Delaware students at one of those three campuses. So we have our own space in Wilmington, and our Wilmington campus, the Community Education Building. In Dover and Georgetown, we're partnered with the Community College in Delaware, so we share space there. But they would be University of Delaware students. And through the Seed Plus scholarship, if you graduated from a high school in Delaware with a Delaware address, and had at least a 2.5 GPA and not convicted of any felony crimes, right? That's the other thing. You can attend our campuses for our associate arts program through our College of Arts and Sciences, tuition free, right?
Nice.
So you get tuition free your first year, you get tuition free your second year. Hopefully at that point you get your associate's degree. You then matriculate to our Newark campus,
Sweet.
right, as a student there. And your third year is also tuition free.
Wow. So a real
Yeah,
affordable way for the Delaware
really,
residents.
it's a close to $80,000 savings to
Wow.
go that route. And it's something that, having worked in the region, having
Sure.
supported students looking for opportunities like that in other states, Delaware's pretty unique, because not only is it reasonable GPA wise, right? All you need is a
Mhm.
2.5. Um, there isn't an explicit financial cap on it either, right? So oftentimes when I'm talking with families that will fall in that middle class, where they probably wouldn't get a ton of financial aid, if any.
Sure. I was going to ask about that. So it's not just for families that make under 50 or 60,000. If someone has, middle or above, average income, they can still access the program.
They can still access the program. And I think that's a real sweet spot, because there's a lot of families in that area who have students that maybe weren't, home run students, and also families that maybe didn't prepare for the cost of college appropriately. And what they will be staring at is tons of student loan debt.
Sure.
So this option gives a chance for your student to grow, and for you to not have to take on tons of debt during that period. And you get the stackable credential. So after 2 years, you do have an associate's degree. And a student
Mhm.
can choose to go into the job market with that degree, or continue to matriculate to our Newark campus and continue for their 4-year degree. That is a really special thing that we have through our AAP program. And that savings is significant. And it's a really something that I believe could ultimately become a model nationally. It's not set up that way everywhere, and I think as a University of Delaware, we're fortunate, and Delaware residents have an amazing opportunity with that program.
This is great. One last question as we wind down our college part here. Talk about affordability for out-of-state students, because as you know, Delaware is a small state,
Yeah,
and we do have listeners in Delaware, but they are a small percentage of our overall listener base. So most people here are not going to be coming from Delaware, and a lot of times people are intimidated by sticker price, especially for out-of-state public schools. Talk to our listeners a little bit about how Delaware realizes it's small and wants to really attract students from other states and provide some generous financial incentives. Can you comment on that?
certainly. So one of the things that the University of Delaware does for our out-of-state students is we are, I believe, pretty generous with merit scholarships. So there's a couple different ways that can happen, right? So our merit scholarships are pretty generous and open to out-of-state students. So we have, 3 different tiers that students would qualify for, up to $6,000 a year. And beyond that, we have what we call for some of our most achieved academically students, distinguished scholars opportunities where you can apply for, some of our DuPont scholars and, get half to a whole scholarship, right, to the University of Delaware. So, and then our sticker price, even in the current climate, I believe is still reasonable, right? As I stated earlier, I have a recent high school graduate, my oldest daughter, who will be actually starting at Delaware in the fall.
Hey,
And yeah, and Delaware had to win her.
yeah, right. I'm sure she independently did a search and looked at a lot of
Yeah,
places.
and I didn't start working at Delaware until November last year. So
And you were
Delaware had
also
to,
coming from New Jersey.
coming from Jersey too,
So
right?
she's
So
hearing a lot about Jersey and other schools outside. She didn't
mhm,
grow up with UD as like the big kid on the block that everybody went to, coming from
yeah,
Jersey.
so Delaware is I think still relatively competitive for out of state students, and we're relatively generous. Maybe not in large amounts for merit, but in what we allow for lots of students from out of states to have.
Sure.
And I think that's important. Yes, we are the flagship of Delaware. It's the state of Delaware, but like most folks know, Delaware is a small state. So I think the only state that has less in-state students than us is Vermont.
Right.
So we're at about 32% in-state. So we are a real draw for surrounding states. From New Jersey, so we know a lot of New Jerseyans love to be Blue Hens. New York, PA, Maryland.
Blue
We
Hens
are
is
real
the
truffles.
nickname, by the way, for everybody. If you missed that,
Yes,
the Blue Hens.
yes,
Yeah.
the Blue Hens. And once a Blue
And,
Hen,
and
always a
and
Blue
Delaware
Hen.
has a private feel in a lot of ways, even that it's public. Wouldn't you say?
That is one of my favorite lines, when I'm presenting. Delaware is a public institution, so you have all the reach, you have all the resources of, a flagship. But when you step on our campus and you walk on our green, which we call that mall area on campus, and you see our buildings, you definitely have a private feel. Delaware's a real community. One of the things you mentioned in the earlier spotlight was about the main street, and that makes it feel real home like towny in a lot of ways, where students have
People
a
love
main
that.
street to walk down, with over 60 restaurants, by the way.
They
So
love that too, by the way.
I always tell students, if you're a foodie, it's going to be hard to beat UD. I mean, we got over 60 restaurants on Main Street, 3 dining halls on campus, 2 student centers, and one of our dining halls happens to be one of the largest on the East Coast square footage wise. I think it's the largest on the East Coast square footage, with 13 unique stations. So you're not going to starve at UD. If you really want, if you're looking for options to eat, they're there
You
for
might
you.
be surprised how many people, look for places with lots of restaurants. It's actually a question we have on our questionnaire: is how important are restaurants? And that's very important to a lot of people. Food is a very important satisfaction, comfort factor, and as good as campus dining is, people like to venture out and
Yeah,
varieties to spice of life.
certainly. So if that's on someone's list, you got to consider University of Delaware. The Main Street's a real special place, and I think what you'll find because a lot of universities are standing up these they're building main streets. They're building their university Ave, they're kind of building main streets, or you'll have some that are much more urban based. This feels really different. And you talk about that, that private feel at the University of Delaware. We definitely get that. University of Delaware was founded in 1743 as well, right? So talk about the sixth or seventh, depending on who you talk to, oldest university in the country. So that also lends to that private institution feel that we have at UD. And you kind of have to be there to really grasp it. You have to come visit.
Man, you guys are
really
coming up for your 280th birthday. That's
it's pretty significant, right?
It's up there. It's up there.
Yeah, pretty significant.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Thanks a bunch for doing this, Darrell. No first time guest gets away without going on the hot seat.
I'm all ready for the hot seat. I've heard it. I'm ready.
I know you're a listener.
I didn't practice answers, but I'm aware. I knew it was coming.
You knew it was coming. Yeah. All right. So the first question I want to ask you is: you can't be in education, you can't be in Christian ministry, you can't be in music. What else? I'm taking away all the things.
Take all the things you heard I did, right?
Yeah. What would be something else that you would find interesting if you had to make your living doing something else?
I'll be 100% honest. I would be a tech entrepreneur.
There you go. Yeah, it's a great answer. Yeah. Awesome.
One of the things we actually have with our nonprofit with Friday is Friday is we actually did go through the process with our guys to build our own app. So we do augmented reality tours.
Oh, you dabbling in it.
College campuses, but for museums. So yeah, that was a new thing we kind of did to keep things energized during the pandemic, and it's been a fun process. It's still learning a lot, but it's been a really fun process. So I've always had lots of ideas, and so I'd definitely be a tech entrepreneur. Yeah,
I love it. You have to live somewhere else. You can't live in Jersey. You can't live in Delaware. It could be another state or another country. Where are you going?
So I was definitely initially going to pick Delaware. Get that.
Yeah, I beat you.
There's some benefits. There's some tax benefits to doing that, especially leaving Jersey, right? Especially getting out of Jersey.
Yeah, so much lower taxes.
All right, so then the next place is really, really easy. My brother lives in North Carolina in the Triangle.
Oh, and, my daughter lives there. My youngest, she's getting her master's. You know that from listening to the podcast.
Yeah, my nephew got his master's from NC State. So,
well, I've lost her. I've lost both my kids to North Carolina. I've lost one to Charlotte. The one that went to Davidson, she lives 2 miles from Davidson and Cornelius. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, she just loves Raleigh. And, they kind of set you up because you get your licensure there and then you're doing your practicum, your internship. So literally they're like 20, they call them second years. She's now a second year now that she's in her second year, but a couple months ago when she was in a second year, all the second years were getting jobs, and literally all of them got jobs in Raleigh because that's where you are. That's where your license, that's where your connections are. So yeah, the Research Triangle. I do love the Research Triangle. It's beautiful.
I love it too. It's funny, every time we visit, there's something new. I mean, the development since my brother's been down there maybe 16 years, maybe a little bit longer. But it's changed so much in development. He initially went down to the concentrating area for relocating Yankees. So he initially started out in Cary, and he's over in Morrisville now. So definitely will be North Carolina.
Well, there's a big debate in our family. What's better, Raleigh or Charlotte? Because I got one on the Charlotte side, one on the Raleigh side. And then I chime in with the ATL and we go. And then we have a really good three-way there. So what's something on the bucket list? You want to accomplish it before you pass on?
Wow.
Or experience it. Either accomplish it or experience it.
So I want to take multiple trips to the continent of Africa to visit different areas, right? So often people say, I want to visit Africa. And it's like, where, right? So I definitely want to go to Lagos, Nigeria. Okay. Definitely want to go to Lagos. I definitely want to go to Egypt to see the pyramids. I definitely want to go to the country of Mali. Finally did our family ancestry, and that is where our family roots trace to.
Oh, wow, you got to go there.
You got to go there. I want to visit South Africa and the world of its own, Madagascar. Much like certain islands and continents like Australia, it's a very unique, what do they call that? Geospheres. It's very unique in its plant and animal life there. Things you can find there you can't find other places. So those would be, the the tour of the continent of Africa.
Good stuff. You were ready for that. I love it. Favorite gospel group or soloist?
Oh, wow. So favorite all-time soloist would definitely have to be Darrell Coley. Right.
I saw him. I saw him in concert.
Really?
In Chicago. So I'm a
Yeah.
big gospel music guy. I have a
Okay.
whole thing, just if I said right now, Alexa, play Mark's gospel, it's gonna start jamming the music right away.
Yeah.
I have a whole thing, and I play it.
I don't know
Oh, I do it all the time, and I love it. And my favorite, it's hard. I have to almost pick five,
Mhm.
but I definitely like. I like Kurt Carr a
Yeah.
lot.
Love
I
Kurt
like
Carr writing.
Donald.
Yeah.
I like Donald Lawrence.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
like Walter Hawkins, still old school Walter
Yeah.
Hawkins.
Yep.
I like Richard Smallwood,
I'm
and
a
I like
huge
Yolanda.
Smallwood fan. I
Yeah,
love the composition of Richard Smallwood.
yeah.
So
So
big,
those are
big
probably my
Smallwood
favorite
fan.
four, and then some of Yolanda Adams' favorite songs are really really good too. So
Yeah,
those
you
are
can't go wrong
that's
with any of those. Can't go
yeah,
wrong with
yeah,
any of those.
yeah,
No. Yeah.
yeah. All right, let's close with your best advice for students, parents, and college counselors.
Wow. Okay, so starting with the students, pick the school that's best for you. It's more about fit than list and rankings and where your friends are going, or prestige and all those things that, the brand names, just like we do with our clothes and our sneakers, right?
Sure.
Um, the fit is really personal. And if you happen to get one of those other things, on top of it, you find a great fit that has great funding
Mm-hmm.
and also has some prestige, that's great. That's the cherry on top. But,
Sure.
you don't order food for cherries on top. You order, for what it's going to do for you. So I would say for students to fit, parents, be honest about your finances up front. Be honest about the reality of what you can afford as a family up front. Don't get caught up in the uh, keeping up with the Joneses and the families post up the street on Facebook about where their kid is going, and you wanting to post something just as special and fantastic, knowing you can't afford it, but you go there and you got your kid going through all of this stuff, in the spring and through the summer, and then the bill comes, and then you have to be honest about your finances. Be honest up front and be real up front. And for college counselors, it's support the students and the families while they're being honest, right? While they're chasing the best fit. As someone who's coached a lot of students and families through the process, I gotta tell you, it's been almost 15 years I was doing this like heavy. And last year was my first child that I walked through the process.
Sure.
And it is totally different when it's your
You
child.
get to see it through a new set of lenses.
I understand why the parents would be late night calls, stressing out. Can you help me do this? Can we get another Zoom? Can we get another Zoom? Like, I fully understand it now, because my own kid was missing deadlines with scholarship applications and things. And I'm like, are we for real? So
Well, I'll add something to that. If you feel you've got this thing down now because you had one kid,
wait
it
till
can
the
be
next one.
completely different because kids are different.
Yeah.
And so the process was really seamless with my oldest. And it was, I tell Joy, like, you are one of the hardest college counseling students I ever worked with. I mean, I love her to death. We're super close. We call each other besties. But that was difficult, partly because she's very strong-willed. He's like, you don't know everything, pushing back all the time. And then she was also an athlete. And
Wow, yeah.
so,
It's
so you're
recruiting
doing like
process.
AAU and the travel and the heavy, and then you hear about all the big names on ESPN. So you want to visit those schools, but yet I'm not seeing you're able to play at that level. So I'm not spending all this money to go, so you had the, and then we had different voices. Her personal trainer was saying one thing, her coach was
Mhm.
saying one thing, her
Oh my
AAU team was
goodness.
saying another
Yeah.
thing. And so that was really difficult, but it all works out. That's the other thing I could say. It kind of all works out in the end if you,
That was the last piece of it,
yeah,
but it all
yeah,
works out. It all works out. Not sure what your major is. or even like me getting to the end and having a major that kind of was heading one direction, you go another direction. It all works out in the end. It really does. As long as you're pursuing the things that you're most passionate about.
Yeah,
right?
it's good to have a few caveats in there because
it's your life, right? You can't pursue what other people want you to pursue, right? You'll be chasing other people's dreams for you the whole time, and you'll be unhappy.
And that could be more advice for kids, pursue your passions. Pursue your passions.
Pursuing the passions. And again, I have a daughter who's going to be an art major. And, I had her on the path for, most rigorous, engineering, pre-med.
Trying to get her to be that tech entrepreneur.
Oh, I had her on the path, man, testing early, doubling up early years of high school to make sure we can, sequence to, calculus, BC, AP, BC, all that. It was
sure.
And
she's like, I want to do art.
In the end, she wanted to do art.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say none of that matters. She got into every school she applied to. And I think it's all because of her talent, but also she had the academics to match, right?
Sure.
But she didn't need it. She didn't need it, right? So I think as parents, we gotta listen to our kids. They don't know anything. We know they don't know anything, but their voice is important. So
yeah, and meet them where they're at and love them unconditionally. Meet them where they're at and love them unconditionally.
It's not easy
Darrell,
to be a parent.
No, it's not easy.
This process, but we find a way.
We're all, well, we have a tendency to talk about students like they're works in progress. We're all works in progress.
Exactly.
We're works in progress. We don't arrive. We don't ever arrive. We're just hopefully we're progressing, to do it better. But we're all of us, whether you're 16, or you're 46 or 56, we're all works in progress. So, Darrell, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your generosity with your time, and thanks for reaching out to me, and thanks for all the additional things that you highlighted. You've got a very outstanding institution you represent that I'm always happy to recommend. So keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Mark.
No, my pleasure. Friends, next week in the news, Susan is up to the plate. And we're going to look at an article called Some Colleges Don't Produce Big Earners. Are they worth it? It's a Ron Lieber article that appeared August 20th in the New York Times. And then for a question from a listener, 2 listeners sent this question in from Texas, Ari from Texas and Ivan from Texas. And the essence of it said, I'll read the exact wording from Ivan. Love the new format of the show and how it allows for you more depth. I'm wondering, what is your opinion of schools not disclosing their common data sets? As I'm going through the process with my senior, I find it really off-putting when schools are not straightforward. So Lisa and I will talk about why schools do not disclose their data to the common data set, and we will name names. And it is part 3 of a 4-part article I'm doing with John Bach instead, and the VP of Enrollment at Oregon State University. And we will now turn our attention to higher ed data stories, which is something he produces. I cannot recommend it more highly enough. Friends, I was having a conversation with Jed Upperroot, the founder of Upperroot Tutoring and Test Prep. We were having lunch actually this week. And we got into talking about the whole topic of Frank Bruni's book, Where You'll Go Is Not Who You'll Be, and how important actually is a brand name school for your career. He shared a powerful story. He said, Mark, I don't know if you know this, but my dad was a complete C student. He was a C student. First, he didn't get in any medical schools at all. The last second, he got a call back, University of Miami, come on out. So he went to medical school, struggled. And he ended up having one of the largest practices in the city of Atlanta as a doctor. And he said, why? And this is a quote from Jed. People skills are everything. His people skills were incredible. So I'm saying all that to say, for all the focus in college application season on trying to get in this school and that school, just remember, people skills are everything. See you next week, everybody. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you'll get every single episode as soon as it is released. If if you're interested, there are a few ways you can really support our podcast. You can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can help us pay our staff and our expenses by donating on our website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. I'm the producer of the podcast, but we have a fantastic team of 14. Shout out to our co-host, Dr. Lisa Ruff, Dr. David Williams, Susan Tree, Vince Garcia, and Julia Esquivel, and to our substitute co-host, Sylvia Borgo. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs are from Kimberly Blass. Lily Parikh manages our Instagram. Our image editor is Talha Khan. Joyce Ducker does our website episode updates. And our webmaster is Stylianos Dimitriou. If you want to have a coaching session with Lisa or me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you have a question you want us to answer, or if you have a recommended resource or article you think we should discuss, just send it to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. By the way, check out our website, where you'll find lots of content that is not on any podcast app. Our website is yourcollegeboundkid.com. If you want to learn about other hot admissions topics, follow us on Twitter at YCBK Podcast. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting again with you every single Thursday.